figure that out?
Well, no, I was at the office. So the speakers are at the office. That's why I said I was at my apartment today.
We got to get you some better speakers. I deal with Shure. Do you want me to send you some Shure speakers, like some Shure mics or what?
Oh, nah, dude. You don't do that. I just need like $20 speakers because like my speakers are broken on my laptop. Like,
No, doesn't this Google Studio send my voice out? Like, why do I have to go through your speakers?
oh,
You understand? Like, everyone else should be hearing me through Google Studio, not through your speakers.
maybe this might be true.
You're just hearing me through your speakers.
Yeah, you're
If
getting it totally.
we don't have a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hope that's the case.
Yeah, I'm used to the janky setup. So,
Also, do you think we could take some calls? Do we figure that out?
I don't know if we figured it out, but I'm open to it.
Okay, we'll just have them PM me and then I'll send them the link.
Then I guess oh yeah, you can. Okay.
And then you have to just accept them, right? Because not everyone can just pop in.
Yeah. Wow. This is really advanced stuff.
I think we're gonna try it. I want to take a couple.
All right. Let's do it.
Okay.
We're live.
All right.
So
beautiful.
Yeah,
no one knows about it, so let me tweet it out.
You should double check to make sure that your theory is correct on it not sounding like total crap.
About me sounding like crap?
Yeah, because it does make a big difference. So just I don't know.
I'm gonna put this on the TV.
No, don't do that.
Be silent. What does it matter? Okay. What do you care?
Well, we kind of need your internet connection to be at its fullest.
Oh, it will be.
All right.
Don't worry about your pretty face.
All right, you do it. Where's the links to?
I don't know. Hold on. Viva La Lamden 4.
Where's the link to?
Oh, hey, there's your face. I don't know.
What?
No. Your profile picture.
Oh. Like, motherfucker can see us.
You're frightened. All right, I just posted it. The Telegram. Oh, there you go. Yeah, the profile pic is your profile pic. So it's working as intended.
Okay. Copy.
Viva La Lamden. You're saying Landon's live right now, right? Oh, I'm just getting it up on my TV here.
Yeah.
See where I watch it. Although it's usually better the second time. Oh shit! There we go. Look here. Look at. It's your face. That's hilarious. Oh god. Oh god, it's just your face. There you are. No. It's just there you are. It just keeps when it cuts out, it just goes to Jeff's face. It's hilarious.
Really?
It just goes to this is probably why this isn't great, because this is gonna be way ahead of that. That's gonna be way behind all the time. I don't know. It's like a 2 minute, not a 2 minute, like a 20-second lag.
Just want to see your shitty face on it. Look at this. You know what, Stu? Don't pay attention to us, man. We've been friends forever, so.
Yeah, no. From what I understand, it's all good, man.
And it's just in general the way I talk to just about anybody.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. I clicked on my box too, so maybe that issue will go away.
Oh, people are logging in. Nice.
We usually get like a solid 24.
I don't know if that matters to me. The way I look at it is the information you're putting out is relevant. I mean, I love it anyway.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's good to like get it out there. Because yeah, I think you're right. It just is like people slice it up and stuff too, and it just is fodder for whatever, you know. You can go and paste that in like a Telegram group to kind of spread the message, and you're less likely to have that thing taken down for spam because it's like content.
Right.
Well, it's nice to have, even if it's just stuff.
I think the most important takeaway is, I mean, you're touching on subjects that a lot of people say, oh, well, you should have known this already. Well, some people don't. You know what I mean?
Oh, like what?
Questions. Well, there's just questions that. No, I didn't drink. There's just questions that people have that I feel like there's this. I deal with it in my job all the time. It's like, well, sit down and talk to somebody about it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's not information on something that's not always just there.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I think people are, they think because Google's brand new, but they think because they can search on Google, if it exists or it doesn't exist or whatever Google spits out is the only amount of truth to something, and that's obviously
exactly right.
So, if it exists or it doesn't exist or whatever Google spits out is the only. I can hear your TV.
Yeah, it was. I just launched YouTube, so it was just double playing.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, I have it on.
So, Jeff, we can start when you want us to start.
Yeah, we are ready to start. Let me pull up my notes.
You got any intro song?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, in 20 minutes actually. I need to figure out how to get Telegram to shut up. Hold on.
What we got? How many people we got in here now? What we got?
So the Zest video is going to be done.
All right. Woo! All right, everybody. Welcome to Viva La Lamden, episode 4. Episode 4. We've got 3 of these things done, and we're really happy to be back. It's been a couple weeks, but there's a lot of good news. A lot of things going on. Stu's going to be walking everyone through some RCnet stuff. We're going to try to take some call-in questions. So if you have some questions you want to talk to us, PM me or DM me through Telegram. I'll send you the link. And, I got a new microphone, so hopefully I sound good. We'll see about that. But I got in my car today. I drove 5 hours north, so I'm up in North Canada at my buddy Rich's place. Random Rich, if you guys are in the Telegram, say hi, Rich.
What's going on, guys?
And I passed a couple White Walkers on the way up here. There's a big wall. Maybe we'll check it out tomorrow. It's cold, but we're outside. We're enjoying it. So
on the lake.
Yeah, on the lake.
Yeah.
It's beautiful here. So also joined with Stu. Everyone's here to listen to Stu talk about Lamden. How you doing, Stu?
Good. What's up?
Well, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's Sunday, so that's cool. I think that everything is good to move to the next step, which is our CNET. So that's cool. Yeah, things are moving.
Big weight off your shoulders or what?
Huh?
Big weight off your shoulders?
Oh, not yet. Nope, not yet.
Did you at least have a good weekend, man? Come on.
Yeah. I try to relax. I try to really nap because, like, I'm so toasted after the end of a week. Just relax. I got the comfy shirt on. Everything's good. No complaints. Tomorrow will be good. I see like things are this is definitely like shifting towards a new direction just in terms of like raw sheer development, just cranking it out towards like much more structured, the bulk of it's there in terms of like the code base, right? So as we start to improve upon our CNET. Like we were talking about before, there's probably going to be things and fixes and hot fixes that we're going to have to introduce, but you know, it is what it is at this point. And so not only is the development kind of moving towards a maintenance and optimization route rather than just sheer development, but the entire company is kind of moving that direction because now we have this asset and we need to utilize it. And so hopefully people stop talking about when we're going to do marketing, because it makes a lot more sense now than it does when you're just halfway through sheer building. And this is what companies do, right? I mean, like this is what you're supposed to do. And I know it takes a while, but here we are. So feels good. There's a lot of other stuff. I'm kind of excited to move forward.
Is the team excited?
Huh?
Is the team excited? Is Ragu excited?
Yeah.
Does he get excited?
Huh?
Does he get excited?
Yeah. In a different way. I mean, like, you know, it's not like, I mean, he's been around the block, right? So he's probably released a million different applications. So as excited as one can get, like, knowing that that's also the thing too. You're like, oh yeah, this is it. Like, you're never going to push the button and be like, it's done. No. You know, ooh, we got the vid from the Zest guy. So that'll be cool too. I'm looking forward to that. But we already have like a backlog of shit that we want to add, you know? Like we're like, yeah, mentally we've already released it and we're just like, okay, yeah, and that thing has been bugging me forever and I want to fix it, and everyone's just like, fix it after, you know, let's refactor it later. So there's already a big backlog of things that we want to do. So that's good, you know, because we're still really jazzed into it. But yeah.
But the meat and potatoes of the back end part is pretty much there. Like you said, you have to you're layering,
yes.
But realistically, the back end, the meat and potatoes is there.
Yes.
So I think podcast 2, you guys talked about, or you talked about, you know, how far do we want to get, you know, parts of it? Do we want to revisit or do we want to release? And that's where you are. Is that the idea?
What do you mean? How far? Yeah.
In Cilantro, it was, you know, how polished does it want to be? How perfect does it want to be? Or what it is now, can we release that? And can we improve upon it, you know, down the road or as it comes up?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So I mean, there's two different things. There's like refactoring, which I think is probably, that's like optimizing and protocol hardening, and basically adding more to the core level or modifying the core level, right? So that it works better. And that's just refactoring. And then there's the features on top, which rely on the core protocol. So like, for example, audit layer, which Tejas has like this master plan for, right? Like a very robust system. But there's a lot of things he can't do until that core protocol is done, because it's just a layer on top of it. It's just like, okay, assuming you can interact with all the master nodes in this way and query certain blocks, and you know that they're going to give it back to you in this format, and you can put it in this life cycle, because of course things are always happening. So while the master node's also doing other work, these are complex things that need to be guaranteed before you can basically say, and now I want to add another service on top of it, right? Like all that structure has to be there. So that's another feature set, or that's another thing, right? So there's two types of development. So obviously for that one, where it's just like adding on top of, you can do that all day, right? So you can be like, oh, I had what was I gonna add? I forget, something with the standard library. Like, I don't know if it's a time, we have time, or like, I forget exactly what it was, but I'm like, man, I should add that into the smart contracting, like standard library, so you can use that. And then it's like, but I can add that whenever. I don't need to add that right now. I'd rather refactor some of this stuff to basically do like very low, or well, not very, but lower level speed tests, getting a better flow for testing things. Like right now we deploy to AWS, then we tear down. But is there a way that we can make that process a lot more optimized? Because it takes a long time to get it up, and all the time that you're spending waiting for this thing to boot, you're not developing, right? Because you're just like, okay, I'm testing this change, and if this change comes out the way I expect it to, then okay, then I'll move forward. If it doesn't, then I got to go and find the bug or whatever, right? So you can waste time there. So I personally think that the best work is done on the refactor side until you can't refactor it anymore, and you know with high probability that anything that is going to pop up as a bug is going to be something that is highly obscure and most likely not a problem of your code, but potentially a problem of like if Python had a vulnerability or something, right? And then you're like, okay, that's a very high level of security that you have for a protocol. And the same would be said for like, Inspector and Meltdown and all of those other hacks came out. There's really nothing anyone could have done about that stuff, but it was very low level. And so you can only do so much as a software developer, but you want to get to that point, and then you're okay with it at that point.
So our CNET allows us to get this out into a bunch of people's hands and find those bugs.
Find those bugs, stress test it, right? Like what happens when, because we push out AnarchyNet, and then people are like, yay, and then there's no usage on it, right? And so you're like, okay, so people kind of got bored of that. This one has smart contracts on it. It's much more robust in that regard. Like AnarchyNet didn't have the contract submission. And it's also using an older version of contracting, which got completely gutted and refactored. And so this is a much more robust, secure, pretty performant version that we feel extremely confident about. And you can submit new smart contracts, and then you can build on top of them, right? Like, Jeff, you've been doing that IDE, so you've kind of been playing around with it. I don't know how much you've done of the smart contract specifically, but it's at a point where you can even build on top of it, the APIs and things like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how easy it is to just make something. I mean, the APIs are standard. They give you all the information you would want from the blockchain. And as far as making smart contracts, you can make one and you can submit it, and it'll tell you what's wrong with it. I mean, it's exactly what you want. Also, you'll be able to run your methods and find out what they return back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And all that kind of good stuff.
We'll be doing that on Tuesday.
What's that? Well, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I was just saying we'll do that on Tuesday.
We'll do that on Tuesday. So Monday, we're gonna roll out nodes. So the other thing about this RCNet or this release, AnarchyNet was more centralized, or it was centralized.
Yeah.
RCNet's going to be decentralized, which is exciting, right? Lambda's not going to run a whole lot of nodes. There'll be the minority of the node holders, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to start off, to kickstart the network, we will be running 3 nodes and releasing the software out to the community to boot up their own nodes, which is exciting. So can you walk someone through maybe what they would need from a hardware standpoint, software standpoint, network connection, and how they might go about running their node if they wanted to?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm actually right now pulling up the nodes on AWS just so we can sort of see in case I want to do a screen share. So I'm going to do logs. Okay. So pretty much you're going to need like a Linux computer. Like you can do this. If you want to do this on a Windows machine, there's no guarantees that this thing's going to work whatsoever. Windows is not architecturally similar as Linux, and Mac is a variant of, I mean, they call it like POSIX, or they call it Nix or whatever, but it's Unix, pretty much the same mechanics as Linux, and we prefer to use Ubuntu just because it's probably the most user-friendly version of Linux. So you need to get that. So you can either dual boot, like if you have a Windows PC, you could make a partition with like, you know, if you have a spare hard drive laying around or something like that, and then you'd be able to use all the resources on your computer, like the RAM and things like that, to essentially run this thing. But in terms of like basically having a service that lets you run a node in the background while you're not doing anything, and so you can like, you know, play video games or browse the internet or things like that on your Windows machine, we're not there yet, right? So you're going to need an Ubuntu box or a spare computer that you can use. Now, the requirements are going to be pretty slim. Like we run these on T2 smalls, and we see all of the performance that we need. And I don't know what a T2 small does, but like you don't need that much because the network's just starting. We're not at anywhere near like the capacity. You haven't pushed the threshold at all. So like for RCNet, you're not really going to need anything. That's why I've been like recommending like, oh, just get like a virtual machine on DigitalOcean, or if you want to get an EC2 instance or things like that. I think in the long term, a healthier network exists in not necessarily in data centers, but for now, it's like, it's easier. From that, you're going to need to know a little bit about like.
So can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah.
I said this in the chat room, and I kind of believe it. Like this is a test network of such, and I don't think that people need to worry about necessarily spending money on if they don't feel, they don't feel the need to. If you have some spare hardware laying around at your house, it might be better to install Ubuntu on that and get that going, as opposed to maybe spending the money for a cloud service. I want to throw that out there. I don't think we're expecting people to do that, considering this is just a test network, right? And in fact, I think that having a lot of varied setups is good for us because we can get to see what people are doing and how it's running and how it's performing. So anyway, continue on.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like you shouldn't be throwing everything you got at this thing, or if you're like, oh, I got this, like, it's great that people have spare hardware that's like, I got an i9 hexa-core, that's dope. We're probably not going to need all of that right now, but the fact that you have that is going to put you in a position to basically be to the top of the node system when you get on the mainnet. But yeah, you're going to need to know like what in Ubuntu, like what Bash is, and generally how to install things on Bash. And if you don't, the process is going to be pretty much copy and paste into the command line. So it's not going to matter a whole lot. But if you might have an issue if you have no idea what's going on, and then you accidentally do something wrong, and you're like, oh crap, what the hell? You can't really screw up the process. Like you install things and you start it. So unless you hit a snag where something's not installing correctly, you're not gonna have an irreversible breakage in the system, which, I mean, believe it or not, Linux, you can really fuck shit up if you're trying to fuck shit up on your computer. That's one of the downsides of Linux, but it's also very robust, and you have to worry about a lot of other things.
With Linux, I find most of it is just copying, pasting commands off the internet, which is how most people use Linux, I think.
Yeah. Now, it's like, that's all you're going to need to know for now, right? If you want to become like a Linux master, or you want to like get deeper into it, yeah, you can. I'd argue it's obviously more than just that, but for this, yeah, that's pretty much all it is.
And there was a question. It's actually a pretty good question there, Mike Hester. It's a pretty good question.
This one here?
Yeah.
So Mike's asking about how we stress test the network with only a few people initially starting out. But I think we have spreadsheets now of people wanting to run nodes. We have quite a bit of people. How many do you estimate, Stu, that we have?
Oh God, at least 24.
Yeah. That's plenty to do a stress test, I would say.
Yeah, and that's half the fun of it, right? Like you get a whole bunch of people on there. So say you have 24, right? All right, we're going to split it up, 12 master nodes, 12 delegates. There you go. Okay, we'll power down our nodes. quorum is met, there's certain requirements for the network to essentially be in sync, right? It's like, okay, there need to be 2/3 of the individuals online to make a minimum quorum, right? So this is like a dynamic consensus mechanism. You need at least 3 nodes because it's 2/3 consensus. So if you have less than 3, it does one. If you collide with one, that's only 50%. So the network needs to have 3 nodes. Above that, you're going to need 2/3 consensus. So if we have 24, whatever 2/3 of that is, like, I don't know, 18 or something. So you need to be in consensus with 18. And to have all those people kind of ready to go will allow us to see, okay, let's try to like push out a whole bunch of transactions, push the same transactions to a whole bunch of people, try to screw things up, try to get like half the network out of consensus, see what happens there. And then like that, all of that stuff will help harden things. And so like we're not, I think we're in a better position than I think one could ask for in terms of available resources to test this thing.
The community has been amazing.
Yeah.
People are asking to run nodes. They're asking to do videos.
Right.
There's going to be plenty of information coming up once this is released.
And there's a concern that, you know, is 2 dozen enough, but I could say that on very large corporations dealing with software, it doesn't take that many people to really find bugs in a system. Right now, I have a system that's available to me that we've already found bugs in. It's actually the biggest automation company in the world right now, and there's issues. They're not big, but it doesn't take very many people to be on the inside to be communicating with the internal engineers on how to fix things. It doesn't take many people on the inside to fix those things. Like, so you don't need hundreds or thousands of people to break a system. You can have a handful and you can get the same results.
Right.
The concern is, you know, Mike Hester, you brought up a very good point, but you know, to your point, there's massive corporations out there that, you know, really a handful of the right people can really serve that software really well.
Yes. And I think just to build off of your point, if you're unfamiliar with these processes, it's usually like there's only so much you can do as an internal developer of the team and to test and be like, okay, everything's good, right? From my perspective, but I'm doing all the things that I think that I can do here, and that's limited, right? And as soon as you give it to somebody else, their mindset and their perception is completely different. So they're going to go and try a whole bunch of things. You'll start to realize, like, immediately there's a swath of things that you didn't see just because you didn't see them. And then that's when you issue like bug fixes and things like that and robust, you know, just changes. And so it's just kind of the process when you're producing software.
But people don't realize that the back end, the work that you guys did over the last couple of years is very robust. And so these things that they're seeing, you know, maybe they're at the forefront of what they're seeing, but the reality is they're fixable. Right?
Yeah.
The back end, what you guys have been doing for 2 years, that's robust. So these bugs that they're finding, they're fixable. Right? They're not the core of your software.
Right. Yeah. So that is, yeah. So like pretty much it's not one of those things where, yeah, you get this bug this late in the game where you're like, oh my God, this destroys everything. Like that's not going to happen. Like you would have found that already.
But people don't really talk about that. I think that there's this, it's like this unspoken part of blockchain because it's so new that they don't realize that there's this massive development that's going on behind the scenes. This massive foundation that has been laid.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
You were working. You were creating this foundation, and so when these bugs come up, because you wrote your own platform, you're able to discover them and to fix them quicker.
Yeah.
Than if, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you wrote it, right? And so you know all of the intricacies and you know all of the potential pain points and things like that. So it's pretty straightforward to get to the bottom of things. And with like robust unit tests and integration tests, things blow up pretty quickly if something is wrong, and you can isolate that very fast. And you can be like, okay, right? Like obviously people have a lot of ownership in the code, but like the best code base is one where you can just run a whole bunch of tests right after you change something. And if something breaks because you changed it, you know exactly where it is. And you can, it should feel more like work than like an active detective, like, oh man, I can't figure out where this thing is. It's so weird. Like at this point you should know. Otherwise you need to go back and rethink about the process that you're creating code in.
Well, I mean, it's unspoken, but really, you've been pretty vocal in the importance of writing your own code, starting from the ground up. But I mean, I don't think people really at the surface understand how much you guys really put into this. Which is really involved in the back end. I mean, 2 years. What are you doing? You on a beach right now? You right? No.
No.
Right? I mean, the back end is really important, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, it's hard because there's nothing to look at. And so like these big, massive systems, I mean, like back-end developers, I think, are the people who write the software that turn a lot of industry and move a lot of things. Like there's systems that exist with absolute no user interface that just move shit and like they just make things run. And because you can't see them and there's no user like UI, it doesn't mean anything, right? But you're correct in the fact that like it doesn't mean it's not there. And oftentimes the front end is really just a portal into the back end. And it's like, you know, you got this big machinery, this big factory. You're not looking at everything that's happening, or you're not doing all that stuff. You're controlling it from a panel. And that's the only like.
Well, you're talking to the secretary.
Right.
In the front end. So I mean, realistically, but I mean, the reality is what people have to understand is that what you did was you took a stance to right from the beginning as a foundation, blockchain from the ground up. I mean, look, it's, you know, it's not fancy because it's not something you can see, like you said, but you know, the reality is it's very robust. And when there is an issue, you're able to go in and look at it and identify it and to correct it in probably a far more efficient manner than if something that you forked off of. Correct? I mean,
oh yeah,
right. I mean, you're not going in there blind, going, well, you know, it should work because really I went off of this existing system where, you know, blah blah blah. But that's not the case here. What the case is here is that you went from ground up,
right,
and you're able to identify these bugs, and you're able to fix them quicker, correct?
Yeah. So
and from a known position. A known position.
That's an interesting, I haven't thought about that. So yes, if we would have said forked Ethereum, we would be fighting against the Ethereum code, right? And so if something broke in the Ethereum code, or we're trying to introduce a new feature that breaks something in the Ethereum code, we're reliant on that developer's unit tests, or that it's developed correctly, that the code is organized in a way that makes sense to us. And that's obviously, you're never going to have 100% communication. Like there's going to be signal loss between you just forking this code that you saw on GitHub and then Vitalik, who knows the whole thing, right? Like you can't be like, hey, I got this bug on this line, like help me out. No, you can't call them up. So like, yeah, there is ownership there. And so it's like, it takes more upfront investment of your time and effort to get to that point. But yeah, you're correct. One is that if any changes need to occur on a bug level, it's a lot easier to do. And then two, in terms of feature customizability, we can do whatever now because we're not restricted by the proof of work protocol of Ethereum. We're not restricted by the smart contracting system. We're not restricted by the programming language that they use. We're not restricted by any of these things. And we can just add features. And because it's built up upon these layers and it at a base has started from standardized processes, standardized protocols, things that people are used to, those investments over time allow really high level development to occur really fast, because you're like, oh yeah, well, all the systems all the way down work exactly like this, and I can rely on that. So when I'm developing a smart contract, there's a ton of stuff that goes on in the back end, but it's all built upon those structures. And so, you know, if I wanted to add, like we were talking about this, if I wanted to add a feature to the smart contracting language itself that exposes some lower level, like for example, if I wanted to add something like, let's see, we don't have the number of stamps that somebody put on a transaction available at runtime. But if I wanted to do that, because there are certain features to allow the extendability of the protocol, it's really easy. It would take me half a day to do that. And then I would be very concerned if I went into the Ethereum and the Bitcoin code base and tried to do something like that, because it's explicitly more complicated and there's just less documentation. The entire project was birthed out of this frustration. So like, it makes sense. And now we're here, so it's cool. But yeah, you know, it's good.
And that's a huge reason why you chose to, I mean, you started the process where you were essentially forking in a sense, but then you said, well, this isn't going to work. I want to be in control of what do I not know, right? Do I want to sweat it out? And if I have to go to somebody else to ask a question when I hit this brick wall, you decided, okay, well, I'm not going to go there. I'm gonna go ground up, and when I hit a brick wall, I'm gonna know, you know, how to get around it.
Yeah, it's nice too, because it allows you to make the choices which you want to make, or how you think a blockchain should work.
Right.
And so if you have, and I've been opinionated through this whole process, and people are like, you just talk crap on everything. Well, you know, I think that might have been, like you're saying, part of the reason why it makes the most sense for me to develop something that's completely built from scratch, because then you can say, yeah, you know, when I was saying that this thing is crap, well, we built it a different way and it's less crap. So like, justified.
Well, you know, I think the major problem, and I've talked to Jeff, you know, many times about it. He's a close friend, and I just said, you know, look, you know, I'm from the outside, and the way I'm looking at it is, you get it. I get that you get it, but there's people that don't understand blockchain. They're thinking that blockchain is you know, blockchain's money. No, blockchain is far, far, far deeper than that.
Yeah.
And it's in my opinion, and this is what gets me, is, in my opinion, is what you're creating, or what's going to be created in the future, it has to go beyond that. And the way that you looked at it was, or in general, is that it's not just about the money factor, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's looking at Bitcoin, it's money. It's not. It was created to hold documents. Like, you're creating something that can transfer documents. Let's say real estate, for instance. You can create a smart contract that can hold people and firms accountable, and it's documented forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's not money, right? I mean, in a sense, it is. But what it is it's a new avenue. It's new software that allows somebody to go forever back in time to look back at that document and exploit it, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes into further. Like I was talking, I have lawyer contacts, and they were saying the same thing. They were saying, so you're saying that we could actually hold our, well, internally at least, we can hold all of our contracts with our clients, everything that's been documented on there, it's unchangeable. But if it was changed, you're saying that, you know, that would be documented. That person that changed it or altered it or added to it would be documented. Yes, exactly.
Right.
And that's how far it goes. I mean, people don't realize that it's much more than, you know, what's the marketplace at, right? It's
yeah. And that's why I think people can be frustrated sometimes with the project.
Right.
And it's like, you know, it is what it is. But I've thought about that legal thing too, because like with a DocuSign document, it's pretty easy to forge that. And like most people I don't think have interacted with lawyers before, because they have no reason to, unless they get hurt, and then they're getting guided through a process that's pretty much like popularized, right? call blah blah blah. They got the ambulance chaser on TV, and then you call them, and they're like, all right, this is how it's gonna go. But when you're doing something, especially in this field, that's very much like, I don't know, the laws have not been written. You talk to lawyers and you start to understand the process. And a lot of it comes down to contracts, intent of contracts, and precedent of law, right? And so, like, just having the contract there and unmutable is massive, because, like, who knows? I could forge a DocuSign document. People could forge Word documents all the time. People send emails with, like, their scribble on it, thinking like, oh yeah, that's legit.
But I mean, internally, when you're looking at lawyers adopting, like, let's say Lamden, they want to use this smart contract. People get upset. They want to leave their lawyers, etc. Well, then now they can take those internal documents, everything that's been recorded, and those people can dissect it very easily, right? And they can proceed on and help these new clients in a way that wasn't possible before, right? And it's secure because now they're adding on, like, it's much deeper than what people are trying to. I think that because blockchain is so new, they think that it's this one avenue, but it's not. It's much deeper than that.
Right. And it's interesting because you can go down certain, like, sort of like thought experiment pathways, and there's certain, like, technology theories on how things get adopted and how things turn into other technologies, right? So if you want to go for a thought experiment, you do something that a communications theorist called Marshall McLuhan came up with. And it's that every technology becomes the antithesis of itself. So you have cars, and they're driving on the road, and they get you places faster, right? So the car was a piece of technology, and it's made to move you faster. Yet, now that the technology has lived on and on, you have this mass transit problem where people are sitting in traffic all day and they aren't moving, right? And so what is this, right? It's like a pendulum. And so the technology response to that is fixing the problem that the technology was supposed to fix in the first place. So, like, for example, you have Bitcoin that started off as cheap, fast payments, right? And now it's this big behemoth clog that is, like, pretty much mined completely on Chinese miners. And you have potential manipulation with, like, the whole iFinix tether thing that could pop the entire thing. And everyone's just like, hey, that's blockchain, right? That wasn't what it was supposed to be, right? And that's why you see a lot of these projects, which I hate all of them, like Bitcoin Cash, V. God, dude, that Craig Wright guy, I hate him more than Roger Ver. He's just smug asshole. But, like,
wearing a Roger Ver t-shirt is at one point, I mean, I'm gonna buy one just to be ironic, but I mean, it's gonna be one of those things where it's like,
So Bitcoin, Binance got hacked. I don't know what the hack was, or it was just social engineering. I'm not sure what they did, but CZ came out and said that they were thinking of just rolling it back, and I'm like, I didn't know that was an option we had in a decentralized system. We can roll it back, can we, guys? Okay.
Right. Well, it came from this guy who was a core Bitcoin dev. I don't know if you saw on Twitter. He was like, oh, if we basically, what the fuck did he do? He was like, he said something like, oh, if we could say that you would get all of those Bitcoins back, right? People would be incentivized to roll the chain back. Like, if Binance was like, we'll pay anyone out there who can return the funds via a rollback part of that stake or all of it. I don't know, right? But the idea is that miners, it costs a lot of money to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin. So the incentive would be you get part of that 77,000 Bitcoins as your reward for manipulating the network. And this is a Bitcoin core dev. And then you're just like, you're like, well, this is stupid. This is you're admitting that the system is now a thing in of itself, and it's not.
Well, you're admitting that the guise of no one controlling the network is actually not that true.
Right.
Sounds like people are actually controlling the network,
which is known. I mean, it is known.
Well, I know there's a lot of big players, but the fact that they would collude like that, even for the greater good, is
what greater good? I mean, like also this entire like crypto punk thing is like, hey man, if you don't own your keys, you don't own your Bitcoin. Sorry for your loss. Like what happened to that? Everyone was like, oh, yeah, you're your own bank. And then when like the biggest, most centralized, most rampantly manipulated, oh God, don't get me started about Tron and BitTorrent and all that garbage that they just blatantly pump. I mean, like everyone's like, oh no, I lost my money. Now everything changes. It's like, yeah, obviously people aren't stupid, right? Like when you had no money, you were all about the Bitcoin. And now when you have a lot of Bitcoin and you have a lot of money, you're saying the same thing that people who have a lot of fiat money are saying. It's like it's obvious, right?
It's also a heavily manipulated game. I mean,
yeah.
When you look at, they're saying that Binance is the most above board exchange. I mean, well, how do we know? I mean, what they're using is I mean, theoretically, aren't they using bots that aren't there bots going online, manipulating the system, going back offline, sure. Right? They're harder to trace, right? So I mean, how legitimate is that, right?
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to have Rich on the podcast was he went through a whole debacle with the bank. And I'll let him kind of tell the timeline, but it was quite the thing. All he was trying to do was be a guy trying to spend his own money.
Buy some Lamden.
Well, not even that.
Right.
But just spend his own goddamn money, right? And he went through a whole thing with them, and I don't know if you still got your money back.
No, well,
I don't know what you.
I have to say my it's just it's there's a money order sitting at the bank right now. My mom called me. She's like, there's a money order sitting there. Like, I've been busy, Mom, but yeah, it's been like 2-3 months. I sent almost $41,000 into an exchange, and I had this account that I used that was pretty much vacant. I just used it so that if somebody tried to hack me, there'd be no money in there. So I'd put money in there, and then I would send it to an exchange, right?
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, CoinSquare, is that right?
CoinSquare.
Yeah, okay, it's CoinSquare, and you know what? Not knocking them, whatever, but they all of a sudden they're saying like, "Listen, you sent this from a corporate account." I said, "Okay." So they
back it up because the money to even get there.
Before it even got there, I transferred it from one account to another. Simple as that from my account, and it just sat there dormant. And so Jeff said, "Listen, man, where's these funds?" So I went into the bank, and they said, "Okay, well, yeah, it's there, but you can't access it to tomorrow because it's on lock." I'm like, "But it's been there for like 2 weeks."
Yeah,
it's on lock. So the next morning, of course, it was unlocked, and then we sent it to CoinSquare. Well, CoinSquare said, "Okay, well, this is from a corporate account now, so we're rejecting it." So then, what do? We went. I sent in. What do you call that? Well, I emailed them, and through correspondence, they said, "Okay, well, we're going to send it back to you." So the bank said, "Okay, so CoinSquare said, listen, we rejected it. Your bank should be able to get it." The bank says, "Okay, well, we're going to try to retrieve it, but we're kind of going in the dark. We don't know how long it's going to be." 3 weeks go by. This is true story. 3 weeks go by. They say CoinSquare is rejecting it. You need to go back to them, and there's nothing we can do. The next day, so I'm busy. I'm working a lot. The next day, the bank says, "We have your money. We just need to know which bank to put it into." Right. So I had like multiple accounts. I have a few businesses. Well, I said, "Well, I closed that account since. So can we just write it?" Oh my God. That started a whole nother debacle. This is 3 months. So right now, as we speak, I have about $41,000 just in my name sitting at somewhere, just just sitting there. Yeah. Right. And
so I guess the moral of the story is as shitty as you might think Bitcoin is.
Yeah. This happened.
The technology to send your money wherever the hell you wanted was really the point of it. Like, I don't want to be like a big I hate banks guy because banks have their purpose.
Right.
But goddamn, it's your money.
If you I don't want to send it because I don't want to have. But if I put this online and you saw that, you actually saw that it was just sitting there for like a month, and I had to go in and be like, "Can you release this to myself? By the way, this bank account is mine."
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy. People are just trashing blockchain or whatever in general, and you're like, do you even understand? There's people that go through this worse than this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yo, give me 1 second. I'm gonna take a real quick break, but I have some stuff to say about this.
Yeah, no,
All right.
so Rich, yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, so like every time you had to deal with them, it wasn't like you could just call them or email them. You had to get in your car and drive to the physical location.
And I was busy. I still, as you know, I'm still busy, and so it was like, it seems like a lot of money to people, but in my case, I'm like, okay, well, I'm too busy for this, right? I just don't have the time. And there's people that are trying to transfer money that go through the exact same thing as me, and they're waiting far longer.
Mick, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Can you expand on that? Maybe Stu might have a better idea. By client, what do you mean by clients? Like the mining software? Is that what you're referring to? No, Stu's probably not taking a bond rip. He can't imagine he is anyway. Any other questions? Hey guys, we need some questions here. If you've got to call in, just PM me through Telegram, or I can send you the link if you want to talk to Stu and Rich.
Stu, I got a question. I mean, look, I know that you got to stay away from this, but what's the big deal with people wanting new exchanges? Can you elaborate on that? For me, this is from an outsider. This is from an outsider, okay?
Yeah.
But for me, it seems that it doesn't really matter, and I could be completely wrong, but it doesn't seem to really matter if you have a great product, if you have a solid product. It's going to do its thing. Does it really matter how many you're on or which one you're on, etc.?
People have this false idea that and this is off the record from like a stance from Lamden whatsoever, right? When I'm a personal individual and I'm going around and I'm looking at exchanges and I'm participating in exchanges because I will to that degree on my personal time. I'm never on an exchange and I'm like, oh, yo, what's this weird ass token? I'm gonna buy it, right?
Right. Yeah. But that's the whole point. So I mean,
right.
You know, and this has to be your opinion. People bought into Lamden. Does it matter really at the end of the day if people want to invest and they believe in Lamden? Does it matter what exchange they're on?
So it matters when it comes to liquidity. So people are like, oh, I'm trying to dump a fat stack into something, right?
Right.
And from like a perspective of just, you know, if you see like an order book that's thin, you're going to be like, well, how the hell do I even get anything out of here? So I can understand that. A lot of people say that's a big reason why they want to see the project on other exchanges. What is the reality of liquidity is that you can't buy liquidity, right? Again, if you go on to an exchange, like you can go on to any large exchange. I think there was a big publication at the SEC. Someone at the SEC was pitching why the ETF was a good idea. And he went through it, and they're like, yeah, so like 90% of the volume on all exchanges is wash traded. It's fake volume. And so what that means is that it's not real liquidity. And I've seen exchanges where their wash traders have gone offline, and it's less than 1% of that. So that's the true liquidity there. The bots are not going to give you liquidity. They need to make money / they need to break even. So generally what happens is if you take a big dump on an order book, which is what happened on Kraken, right? Someone took a massive dump. The bots just don't regard that as a price change. And they're like, nah, I'm going to set up these walls again right at what the price was. And I'm just going to completely disregard that you just dumped a massive amount of assets into the order book. Whereas if you did that on like gold had a flash crash, where somebody just was like accidentally sent out 1 billion contracts and to sell them, and because he worked for the bank, they had the bucks to back it, and it just tanked gold. Like that's usually what happens because that's the actual traded asset. But if you go to a cryptocurrency exchange, go ahead, tank the order book. It's just going to pop back up because generally they're these matchmaking bots that just like sit there and then allude to the fact that there's a liquidity. And here's the thing about this. You're paying close to 5 figures a month as a project owner for one of these services. Just to have those bots back and forth, trading like these tiny little things. And then you pay all of the, you upfront the crypto on both sides. And then if there's any losses because their algorithms fucked up or anything, you pay that out of pocket. And then you pay, like I said, almost 5,000 or 5 figures a month for the stupid thing to run. And they're like, yeah, it's better. It's not really.
I didn't realize that the projects were paying for the bots. I thought that was just an exchange initiative.
No, I mean, yeah, it does make sense.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, look, the reality is the exchange is, like you said, somewhat you want a good exchange. But like to get to really cement this into people that invested in Lamden, what they have to understand, I guess, is what you're saying is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The real value is something that you're going to grow organically, because reality is a lot of these people that are entering into these exchanges are at least off the record really paying quite a large sum to keep these valuations high. And there's a lot of wash trading going on.
There's a massive amount of wash trading going on, and it doesn't do anything either way. So like people, the game, the whole craze that happened in 2017 to early 2018 was an organic project started and did its thing. And like for Ethereum, people were like, this is cool. I don't know if you remember Augur, but Augur was one of the first projects.
I do.
Yeah.
And that took so long for them to get done. And it's not even a blockchain, right? It took more time to develop what they've developed than we had. I remember in like 2015 or something, I was like, oh yeah, I heard about that. I think that's stupid. But that's how it used to be, right? Augur was an early project. Golem was an early project. Now, I don't know what's up with Golem, but there were these early projects that sort of showed you how things go. Lisk was an early project.
Right.
Even earlier than that, you had Monero, you had Litecoin. Litecoin is kind of like the 2013, let's just fork Bitcoin and call it something. But then you have these other projects that are like fair mining, all this other stuff. And then people were like, oh, I can just crank this thing out, and then I can just basically hype it and pay to maintain that hype, and it will be hyped, right? And so people started getting used to that, and they're like, okay, this is what you do. You go, you do a whole bunch of shit marketing, you go and you just plaster this all over the place. You make these outrageous claims. You don't do any work, and then you go and you pay some exchanges, because that's what matters. You just list it on those things, and then you burn a whole bunch of bucks on marketing. You go and you pay a whole bunch of YouTube shills to basically say this is the best shit ever. And then
to read your webpage live on air.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just sell all your team tokens back into the hype, and then you're like, yeah. And then when the thing crashes, you can decide what you want to do there. That's basically how people have demanded this. Right? Because then when people are like, why don't you do this? They're hearkening back to that process. And they're like, I want that. I don't think you really do want that. Well, if you do want that, go somewhere else. I don't tell you. Like that's some crap.
It's not
is it insulting to you in a way?
No,
it must be a little bit, right?
It's not insulting because it's like expected behavior. I don't like, it's not like, oh, you think this project is like that? No, people say whatever they want. But like, it's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I get mad when they get mad at me because I'm like, why are you getting mad at me? But like, that's about it. It's just like, you can't explain it to people unless they get it. And then like, a lot of people are looking for that. They are expecting that sort of thing, and they want that because they figured out how to game it themselves.
But it might never happen again. And the reality is that, like, especially with the podcast that's happening now, these things happened in before in history. It's just that there was no podcast to really talk about it. Like right now, you're voicing your concern with things that happened in the past with blockchain that kind of tainted it. and the reality is that these things happened before. They just weren't documented. They weren't podcasts.
Yeah.
Right. These people are up in arms, but I mean, they didn't have an avenue to really voice their concerns. Like they're just able to, they're able to just text it to you or text it to the community. This was going on for a long time.
Yeah. How long have you been involved with like blockchain?
Right.
Well, no, that's a question.
Sorry?
Actually, how long have you been involved in blockchain?
Oh man, like what, 2-3 years, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got introduced to it in like 2010. And so like, that was really early. And that was when it was just Bitcoin. And then what happened in 2012, 2013 is when like things like Litecoin and all these other things happened. And basically the way that you would scam people is you would go to Bitcoin Talk. You'd be like, yo, it's my sweet new token. It's got like these things. And like, that's when you see things like Feathercoin or like these weird, you're like, what is the purpose of this?
Pipe coin.
You know?
Yeah.
Meme coins.
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't last. And I mean, the reality is do we even know, I mean, who profited from this? Like everybody's wanting to profit from a blockchain startup, but they don't realize like, okay, well, do they realize are any of these numbers realistic at the end of the day?
I saw a coin the other day. I can't remember. I think I came across a tweet. It was like, what is this? It was like they minted 1 million and everyone bought them. And then every time the coin gets transferred, they burn 1%. It's called bomb coin, I think it is.
Okay.
And I'm like, why? It's $1. I'm like, why does this exist? And why do people have it? Like, that's a weird experiment. It's like the guy left holding the bag loses. Like, it's crazy to me.
I guess the whole reason we're bringing this up is you're not in it for that. What you're in it for is the actual blockchain. That's I guess the whole conversation is everybody's talking about the financial gain, the exchanges, etc., but they're missing the point of what you're doing. And what you're doing is you're creating a ground up blockchain that developers can use to give to their clients to create a sustainable environment to live in, right? Because online, right? That's what it is, and people are missing the point.
Well, I've done everything that I can do, right? I tell them exactly what, and they're like, "Yeah, I get it," and then they come back to you with this stuff. So it's like, I know exactly. You're completely.
So we actually have a question about that in the chat. So we have some marketing questions, and this is a great point. So we talked some about some of the coins that do this kind of vicious kind of marketing cycle kind of in the wrong way. Right. So what's the right way to do marketing? And now that RCNet's coming out, how's Lamden going to do marketing?
And what do you care about? That's what's important. What do you care about to market to your company? Because obviously you care about it. Obviously.
Yeah. So I think I talked with Jeff about this, is that when he heard about smart contracts, he Googled it and there were no resources. And then I think I Googled it with my ad blocker off just to make sure.
That was podcast 1, just so people know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an amazing podcast.
No one's doing AdWords on how to make a smart contract. Right. So that is almost unbelievable, right? Because people are like, how do you compete against Aon and all these other ones? I don't know, but no one has the AdWords for how to make a smart contract. So no one's doing advertising to get people on their platform. No one's actually marketing, right? Everyone's trying to hype, and that's not the same as marketing. So the ideal situation is, okay, you get some AdWords. Dude, you could spend $100 a month and get conversions. And we did this. We recorded like this webinar thing to get people through the pipeline. That's kind of on ice until we have the funnel complete. But pretty much what you do is you get people on the site. You have something that you want them to do. What I want them to do is submit smart contracts and start developing, because then they're like, oh, well, I want to put this on the public net, right? And how do you put it on the public net? Oh, well, you need the cryptocurrency to put it on the public net. That's kind of the entire point, right? Is that's everything. So like the ideal situation is a website where you go on and it's an interactive sort of thing. Like Jeff's been working on this IDE. If we could put that on the homepage and it's like, here you go, here's what it looks like, here's the tutorial. Oh, here you go, you want some tests, some test towel? There you have it. All right, have fun. Self-service, right? And here you go. Here's where if you need it, right? And that's why we're looking at these things like these licensing. So like if we can market to people abroad and be like, look, you can just get the token here. And that's pretty much the entire concept. Like it's a blend in between like cryptocurrency, and I've heard people say like serverless architecture or like APIs as a service or things like that. But really what it is like I want to monetize something, right? It could be the lawyer application. It could be like Crazy Bones, like little collectible things. But I want to deploy that, and I'm going to pay to deploy that. And then I can get an ROI on that application that's added value to people through the system that I'm participating in. That's sweet. So if you have an idea and you're just like, I don't really know anything about backends, I don't really care, I know some Python, I got a cool app, I'm going to deploy it. That's kind of what Ethereum was supposed to be too, right? And then whatever happened to that? Well, there's several things why I think it's not picking up steam. And you have Vitalik basically, I feel like, pulling his hair out saying this. He's like, this is not what it's supposed to be like, you know? But that's how it goes. You pipe people in, you get eyeballs on it, you do some webinars, maybe you do like a Code Academy type thing, or like a Udacity or Udemy type like web series. You start going to developer meetings, you start doing ambassador programs, or you start sponsoring hackathons where you're like, oh, we'll give you like $500. Whoever makes like the best application with our software gets $500. And you're like, oh.
That's organic, right? I mean, that's important.
What?
It's organic. It's important. Like how you want to develop Lamden and blockchain in general, because you believe in blockchain. That's important to you, right? I mean, it's beyond just I'm going to market. Lamden's going to do all these things. This is a longevity game for you, correct?
Yeah,
like just a project. I mean, I've voiced my concerns. This isn't a project for you. This is a company. This is something you believe in.
Yeah. The community is really important, though. So, like, I'm not looking at it to like squeeze bucks, you know.
Right.
That's why it's structured the way it is. But yeah, it's like I'm 100% committed to this. And so, like, what was I gonna say? Ambassador program. God, I forget exactly. Oh yeah. The whole point is that when you think I want to make a blockchain app, well, scrap that. When I want to make a web application, what do? I'm gonna get React. I'm gonna get a backend. So flavor, pick the flavor. It's Postgres now. I'm gonna get a Postgres. I'm gonna get like a Linux box. Yay. Like there are tools that you use to develop an application, and like whether or not people want to admit it, this goes back to what you're saying, Rich, like they don't see it. They don't get to see, oh, this website's using React. They don't get to see that. Oh, this is using Postgres. They don't get to see that. They see what's on the browser. But for anyone who's building that, they use Lamden, and it's not even like a decision because it's so much better than everything else to use for applications. Well, then you won. You're basically solidified. You can even, there's like examples of companies offering inferior products, but because they had a first mover advantage, or they were like the one, like the Coca-Cola, they just have people and they'll put up with it because it's like a name recognition thing. And there's so many resources on it, right? Like people use it, they start to amass like Stack Overflow posts, and they start to have examples. So even if you were to go to another one, you wouldn't have the same robust documentation on it from the community. People, like, the part of it is that you can import smart contracts into each other so you can build off of things. None of that is there in any other chain. So all that stuff is really important. And I was going to say something else.
You were talking about paying developers or contests and things like that.
Yeah, ambassador program. And then that led into Oh yeah. The thought experiment of technology. This goes back to like the Marshall McLuhan thing. You can always tell where technology is going. And like Henry Ford said, if I would have asked what people wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? So
yeah.
So like that's not the point though, right? The point is that they want to get to point A to point B faster. So they're like, well, I know horses, so that's how I'm describing that need. But that's not like if you would have given them a car, they would have been cool with that too, because it serves that need. So you need to abstract it and be like, what are the needs of individuals? And so like blockchain can solve a lot of those problems, right? Trust, and it can solve it to like magnitudes higher. So like, yeah, contract. There's like a simple thing that I want to eventually make is that it's like you can have like lawyers can have cloud storage like Dropbox, but it's really secure. And what you would want to do is essentially upload hashes of that file to the blockchain and digitally sign them with your signing key, and then that would be solidified. So then if somebody gets a PDF or a Word doc in their email and it has their signature on it, they can verify that it's the one they signed, right? And
that's through their digital key. That's not an actual physical signature or a digital signature. It's actually their key.
You also don't need to store the document in the blockchain.
Right. It's still secure on your server unless that client leaves you.
Right.
So, or if they don't, but you need parts of that document, they can sign that over to you, just that part.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very deep.
Yeah. The storage is all changed. So it's like, so then you can have it with multiple law firms, right? Every law firm can use it. And then no matter if you're a client and you have 5 different lawyers because you have a general counsel, you have like a particular lawyer for a particular type of thing, like let's say IP, you're doing like patents and stuff. You have those lawyers. You can put them all similarly there as someone who's using it, and it's not an issue. And then these lawyers can reference those hashes and be like, my client uploaded this. Your client should go sign it, and then boom, it's up there.
And really, I mean, redacted forms go away because really you're signing over to let's say, like you said, like let's say you have 5 different lawyers looking at it, you have a client. I mean, redacted forms, they go away because really the acting lawyer has a total document, and you can just sign over parts of the document that they want the rest of the firm to see from the original client. Right. And so forth with if a client was to leave that firm and to go over, there is no redaction in that form. It's just the total of the form, even through different lawyers that worked on it, that would be in its total form. And they would actually be able to piece it together.
Sure.
It would be as a total, and it would be in all segments that were sent out.
Yeah. And like it's configurable, right? So whether or not you want to do that, or whether or not you want a lesser solution, like the cryptographic schemes that exist are like mathematically like valid. So like it doesn't matter how you use it, but it's built in a way that allows you to use it however way you want. You're just like, I just want to verify that my client signed this and the counterparty signed it.
Right.
It's 100%. If I upload this document or I hash this document and then go look on the blockchain for this hash, and if it's been signed, it's either gonna be there mathematically or it's not. It's like 100%. It's math. You can't fuck with math.
But further than that, like you said in episode 2 or podcast 2, you can have folders to it. So you can have the original form, you can have the sent out redacted form to said 15 or 20 lawyers, and each folder can have that redacted partition to it.
Yeah.
And it goes pretty deep.
It does. And
right? So you have the original, and then, like you said, I mean, it's if people go back and they watch episode 2 or podcast 2, where you were talking about how deep that smart contract can go, people can also delve into parts of not only the full document, but the redacted part of the document from, say, a legal holding, right? So where they left that lawyer, but they need to now break it apart.
Right.
What lawyers were seeing what was the original lawyer seeing, what was the client sending, etc.
Yeah. And this
is very neat. It's very neat, very organized, correct?
Pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen that video.
You're talking to a couple old guys, probably.
Yeah, I'm old as fuck. So
never mind. There's a video where this. I'll send it. Nature walk. But
nature walk.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Yeah. So yeah, no, you're completely right. Like, and it's all about building on top of itself. It's all about providing like that extra security, right? What's the problem? And you're like, I can't send things across the internet without it potentially being unredacted or knowing that it's part of the original document. I wish that there was a better way to send things across. When you go back to that Henry Ford thing, maybe there's not a perfect analogy to a horse, but there's probably certain things that people would suggest in lieu of that. But if you provide them with like, you're like, yeah, it's ironclad, like there ain't nothing screwing with this, and it's demonstratable, and other people use it and they vouch for it, and you can mathematically deduce it and be like, yeah, yo, so it's all there. That's powerful, and it doesn't matter what people think about the optics of the project or the marketing of the project or whatever the fuck exchanges the project's on, because the utility is completely demonstrable. So it's like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just like, yeah, that's it. Whereas I think if you see on Ethereum or like Tron, like we got the most transactions.
Right.
On what?
That's a hype word, right? I mean, really, I'm sure. Look, I don't know anything about what they're doing, but I'm sure that it's deeper than that. But what you're going for is actual utility.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I know,
yeah.
I mean, I can, as far as I know, you're going for deep utility. You're going for utilization of your product, and you're looking for corporations. You're looking for financial institutions, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Looking for what we talked about with law firms, etc.
Right.
Is the platform that you created? The reason why you created it, in my mind at least, is for utilization of intellectual properties and the guarantee of signature, right? Like what you want is you want to know if I'm sending something from A to B, how it got there, and I want to guarantee the person that's signing for it, who it is.
Right.
And that's really what you're creating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the customizability is really big too. And like, you got to abstract it out. Right. And so like, I think this is something that people were saying like, oh, the infrastructure projects are the way to go. What does that mean? What is infrastructure? Right. So like, not this project like allows you to do those things. But if you were like, Stuart, quantify every single thing that you could develop with this software, I couldn't do it because it's like it has a programming language in it. And that's kind of the point, is that the project isn't a specific application. It's the means to develop that application. So it encompasses all potential derivatives, and all use cases would be on this thing. So you just got to sit back and relax, like once you release it, you start, whether it's yourself starting to develop things on it, which I definitely want to do, because like, why not? I just released this thing in like a vision that I think is ideal. And so I'm going to develop things on it. But like, you should start showing it to people. You're like, yeah, you could do this thing. And then you start getting things to click, and then people start running with it themselves, and they start building on it. And like, it's cliched, because I think a lot of like that mentality has also been tainted by like hype train. So you'll be like, oh yeah, we did like these massive things, like these massive marketing pushes. We got like all these crazy projects happening on our blockchain, but you still don't really have any real world use cases, and no one's like isolating that out and being like, this is why it's not usable. Like, people are like, it's a scaling issue.
Can it be though?
Huh?
Can it be? I mean, you're developing from ground up because you must have found a hole in, can it be? Can these existing platforms scale the way that they're being touted to? I mean, you must have found a chink in that armor.
So what I mean is that like people are like, oh, Bitcoin's not being used because it's not scalable. And
Right.
once we scale it, it will be used. That's not true, right? That it's like it's a gestalt, right? So it's the sum of the parts are not the same as, you know, the individual parts all laid out are not the same as it all put together. It's like a car, right? You lay out all the parts of a car and you look at them and you're like, well, I can point out each of the parts, but together it's a vehicle that moves. Saying that Bitcoin's solved by the scaling issue is just to say that this is one problem with this system and we're going to isolate it completely and then solve it, and that's going to fix all the other issues. And that's not true, right? Like you can't just do that with, I think, just about anything that you're trying to improve upon and expect it to actually work. So,
and is that why you went off on your own road?
Yeah. I mean, like, really, it comes down to everybody says the same things, right? They're like, it's not scalable. And so you see the extremes of that. Like, okay, Bitcoin's like 3 transactions per second or something. Then you see these projects like Quark Chain, it's 3 million. And you're like, it's not 3 million, right? Like,
well, you did the math on it. Yeah. I mean,
even if it was, right? Let's presume that it was. Does that solve the problem? Is everybody going to use Quark Chain now? No, that's not true.
Because the problem isn't really transaction speed. Transaction speeds right now are pretty okay on most things, right?
Yeah.
Most things only do one thing. They just send back and forth like 2s and 3s, right?
Yeah.
They're trigger words in order to get investor attention, but that's not the interest here. I mean, the interest here is the longevity of Lamden, and my main concern always has been the amount of work that went into the back end. I mean, nobody talks about it. It's not glorious by any measure, but it's pretty robust, right? I mean, so what's the future? Like, what I like, just as somebody that's been interested in Lamden, what's your future for Lamden? I mean, what do you see? What would you like to see happen off Lamden? And like, let's not talk about transaction speed. I don't care, right? I mean, I'm talking about the longevity of Lamden. What do you want to see from it?
So, I mean, I think like I said, it needs to be the tool that people are just gravitating towards, because then once you have that, you're pretty much solidified. Everything needs to be pretty good, right? You need to have pretty good transactions per second. You need to have pretty good decentralization. You need to have pretty good smart contracting, right? And if it's pretty good, people are cool. And so there's certain things that you can shave off in terms of like, oh, it's not the most decentralized. Okay, but then that means that you're not getting scalability. So what is it? It's somewhere in the middle. That's ideal. My main concern in where Lamden moves forward from a technology standpoint is it can be optimized through the roof, and it needs to be optimized through the roof. So like a lot of, like, we can get massive performance gains. We can get way better. Like I said, there's like this quorum thing that needs to happen. That process is kind of like lockstep-y, and that can be simplified. There's not really like a client, like a CLI tool. There's not really a good way to deploy your own nodes for your own network and then connect networks. That was the thing that we talked about with the interoperability. There's like a lot of different things that we want to do, and really, I also don't like thinking too far ahead in advance, because we're already biting off a lot, right? And so it's like, okay, play with this, see how it works, and then we'll observe it and we'll see what's wrong with it and then fix those things, and then it'll make more sense. Like, there could be activity that doesn't exist right now in any sort of facet of the world. Like, for example, tokens on Ethereum 3-4 years ago, that whole concept wasn't even a thing. Those types of concepts might emerge, and then a demand for that would occur from that, and then we should develop the system towards that. So it's like a feedback loop with you in the community, just as like a developer for the project. But I mean, I think it's like, at this point in time, it's what I want it to be. It's got everything, all the buds are there to start growing, right? And it's really just a matter of pushing it out, making sure it's the most robust, easy to use thing that exists. There's definitely a lot of the UI stuff that needs to happen. There's definitely a lot more on the onboarding of users that needs to happen. But all in all, given all of these things, like there's a lot of exploration that needs to occur, and that's kind of the fun part to me.
So speaking of Lamden, speaking of onboarding, Lamden's looking to hire some new developers.
Yes.
Can you give us an update on how that's going?
Right.
Yeah. So we have one candidate that we're essentially converting. I don't want to jinx it because I have to talk on Monday about negotiations and things like that. Then we have another position open, and then that's like at least. And then after those 2 hires, we want to hire a business process engineer or something, or analyst, someone to come in and solidify the processes that we have, because we've been going through this fun startup where there's not a lot of rules and it's all hunky-dory, to okay, now this is a system that people depend upon, and there needs to be high protocol. How you develop things, how you push it out, how you test it, there needs to be much better. And that is not just on how you develop software, how you design software, it's also how you go about expanding business processes. And so
accountability. Accountability,
but also like I was saying, it takes like a few minutes to boot up a test network for you to do your testing on. Those few minutes that you're doing that, like you're just wasting time. And there's like a big theory of thought around lean methodologies and how you shorten that down. And so like this is why Toyota sort of blew up in the 90s, I think, is that these guys, these like business process gurus came to America with this whole concept called lean methodology, and they pitched it to all these American automotive companies, and all of them were like, yeah, no, we're good, we're American, go fuck yourself. And they're like and they went to Toyota, and Toyota's like, this is dope, and they implemented it, and then they just roasted American autos. And that's when
their R&D was massive, and it remains so to this day. Their R&D is Toyota and Honda is robust, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I only know this because I deal with some automotive CEOs, so I know it's robust, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, that actually segments into, I mean, we've had some developers leave Lamden, but my personal take on it, my only personal take on it is that they left for their own personal reasons, but they were there for the time that they needed to be there for. And to ask for a reason why, I mean, in my sole opinion, it's like, you don't get to know. That's their reason.
Yeah.
Right. And so do they deserve that respect to just move on and to look at new chapters in their life? Correct. I mean,
I completely
do we get the right to just come online and demand these answers, or do we say that they deserve the respect to just move on and to choose a new chapter in their life? Like, what's your opinion about it? Your actual opinion about it?
I think you're correct in that I definitely would not feel obliged to seek out and demand certain answers. I definitely would not do that, right? And so I'm not quick to necessarily tell people whether or not they should be able to do so. And so that might be a fault, but I would never do that, because like you don't know what's happening internally in the organization. You don't know what's happening internally in these individuals. You don't know like where they are in their lives, how the business is changing, whether or not they buy into said changes.
Right.
There's a million different factors, and it's very easy to go online and see one snippet. And it's got, again, it goes back to like the back end, right? You see one tiny little sliver of it, and then you translate that into an emotion, and then just send that emotion out, and then expect that emotion to be quelled in you by someone who's trying to build something, right? And so it's like, yeah, it's annoying. I do not appreciate it. It's frustrating. People who approach it in a respectful manner, I appreciate much more, and I am always open to discussing it. But there is definitely this concept of like entitlement that that goes beyond a degree of, hey man, I'm like involved in this project. This is really worrying me. Like what's happening? That doesn't happen, right? People come in, they bitch about shit, and then they are like, and if you don't, you suck. Like if you don't tell me and you don't make me feel better, you suck.
But I mean, shouldn't we show them, look, from a complete outsider perspective, I've never ever had a conversation with you about it or in general about anything really.
Yeah.
Should we not show these people the respect that they deserve to say, you know, I wanted to start a new chapter? We don't get to get into their lives.
Yeah.
Like that's not our right. We don't get to get into Davis and Falcon. We don't get to get into their lives. It's not our right to do that.
Right.
If they want to leave and they want to do their own thing, show them some respect is all I'm saying.
Yeah, we're not in the business of tweeting out people's HR records. So
Right.
Stu, just to take a little bit of pivot here, what's your opinions on XRP? I know.
It
hard right.
It just came up, yeah.
But you know, we got some questions in the chat about XRP. I'm just curious, you know, what's your opinion on XRP and why isn't it going to be the gold standard?
Okay.
Try to find the Genesis block of Ripple.
Okay.
I challenge you. Does not exist. You cannot find it. You cannot find the first 30,000 blocks.
Why is that?
I don't know. It don't exist.
Do they know?
Do they? Wait, does at least one person know? Is there a guy sitting on a couch that knows?
God, the CEO maybe knows, but go and find it. Go and try to find the Genesis block for Ripple, and then come back and try to defend it as a blockchain. Now, are you talking about, oh, it's a great payment solution? Great. Okay, so you put that in PayPal and all that shit, right? And that's a completely different sector. That's fine. But people are like, it's going to replace Bitcoin as what? I don't really, what? As what? As a payment processor?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, but that's not what people are saying. People want to see it number one, coinmarketcap.com, Ripple, you know, that's what they want to see. And that's
30 cents. They want to see it at 3,000. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah, my personal opinion of Ripple, because I was in Ripple really early.
Yeah.
You have a Ripple shirt.
I have a Ripple shirt.
You have a Ripple shirt.
I have a Ripple shirt.
Yeah, he does.
Given away for free.
Now he has a Lamden shirt.
I didn't pay for it.
Hey.
I do still rock it.
He does.
Yeah. I think that Ripple existed as a company before, and they own Swift, and Swift is different from Ripple. It's what banks currently use.
Yeah.
To send payments.
Yeah.
And I think what they're trying to do is join banks with a cryptocurrency backend, and I think that's good. But I don't know why, as someone who's trying to trade or get in on something, look, banks are not trying to make you money, so they're not going to get in on something that's going to make you a millionaire, right? So I don't know. I think buying XRP is kind of a fool's errand, is what I think. So
it is. And then I didn't know this. I was all about Ripple. Okay. When were you rocking the Ripple shirt? Like when did you get introduced to Ripple?
3 years ago?
3 years. It was probably late 2016, early 2017.
Okay. So
the other day.
Yeah. So when I was in 2013, I saw these thing called Ripples, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? This is back when there was Satoshi dice and all this other fun crap, and I was trying to like figure out, I was like, all right, I'm gonna game Satoshi dice. No, it doesn't work like that. It's just like a dice game, right? So I'm like, I'm fucking around with Bitcoin, you know, and there's this Ripple thing, and I'm like, what the hell is this? It was never started. The company started just as a payment mechanism for your friends. They're like, send some Ripples. They're called fucking Ripples. They're like, send some Ripples to each other, and you buy like a fat stack of like 1 trillion fucking Ripples and just move them around. And like, okay, that was cool. But then everything about the company started to shift as they started to realize there's demand for it. And I think that's when they started to look at payment processing, because the company was not founded as that. And all of the Ripples that exist, which are now XRP, are not in any way tied or were created because of their main value prop that they say. So what is it? I don't know. It's Ripples. I don't know.
Wait, so it says this is the guy that asked the question. So my question is, if trillions of dollars of liquidity are flowing through XRP,
It's not.
yeah. So what's your view on how powerful the company in XRP will be?
I don't. Does this guy like XRP? Is that
that's something yeah. It's not in his name though, so that's something.
Trillions of dollars of liquidity is not passing through Ripple every single day. Trillions of dollars of liquidity passes through the foreign exchange market every day, but that's the massive global foreign exchange market. If you can try to find someone like Deutsche Bank or Bank of America who changed their entire payment processing mechanism over to Ripple, then okay, yeah, then you can say that's not even trillions per day. Trillions of dollars of liquidity does not exist on Ripple. So you're either hearing facts and not understanding them, or you're being told something that's not true. And so that's just the case in point. Ripple likes to be like, we're the John Kasich of cryptocurrencies. I don't know if you guys get that reference, but they're like the moderate, right? Like the reasonable moderate who's still a piece of shit. And like, but pretend.
Is he Ohio?
Huh?
Is he Ohio governor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But he runs on a platform where like, I'm not that bad of a Republican. Like, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fishy.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd still party with him.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'd still party with him.
You still party with them?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know this guy.
Oh. He eats ice cream with a fork. There's a really funny video of him.
I would definitely party with him then. No. Maybe. I mean,
I don't know. Dude,
ice cream with a fork. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I'll send you the video. It's hilarious because it's like he tries to make this joke and it just doesn't land because he's kind of a weird dude and no one laughs and he's just like eating ice cream with a
fork. It's like that creepy guy that like sang the eagle landed or whatever. He was trying to get one of the presidential candidates in, and he was like singing about like some eagles landing.
Oh God!
He was on Joe Rogan recently, and he was like, he plays this song ironically. It's amazing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I would not be surprised that Joe Rogan has talked about John Kasich, but yeah, I don't. So okay, yeah. Back to the point of where Ripple is. Again, I think that they literally woke up one day and were like, "Oh shit, we have a ton of Ripples. We better do something with all this." I've heard through the grapevine also of people who like have talked to the CEO that that's basically what had happened. Of course, that's complete speculation, and you shouldn't take my word for it. But it makes sense based on my experience, like seeing this website for Ripples really long time ago and being like, hey, that's cool. Not thinking about it. And then when it came back and then all these people are like XRP. I'm like, yeah, this is the Ripples thing. Who cares? They're just Ripples. And then you hear a whole bunch of, well, now it's this. But those Ripples are still the same. And again, try to find the Genesis block. If you care about cryptocurrency, you would care about where the Genesis block is. And then if you don't care where the Genesis block is, you don't care about the cryptocurrency integrity, and then we're just talking about payments and we're not talking about cryptocurrency, and that's a different conversation. So
I agree.
Pick one. Right?
I agree. So how much longer do you have, Stu?
I'm hanging out.
This went way too long, but it's kind of like a Joe Rogan podcast where they were saying you should edit out. And he's like, nah, man, I'm just going to release all of it.
We're going to edit out most of you. Yeah. I'm just joking. So, no, you've been great. Thank you for joining us. So people wake up tomorrow. What can they expect as far as being able to install RCNet? What are we going to tell them tomorrow?
We'll probably roll it out to like, the internal squad of peeps first. Okay. Make sure everything is hunky-dory. Because, again, you always risk, like, just the optics of it, that someone can't get their node running or we run into something. It's a lot easier to do with like more trusted community members, right? Where they're a little more forgiving on you. So we'll probably do that first. And given everything's all good, we'll probably, because once you start it, the mechanism is that you put the nodes in and then it runs, right? So we'll probably make sure everything's hunky-dory, tear it down, get all the nodes in there, put it on, and then we're just like, all right, we need to figure out how to give people the test tau again. Because basically what happens is a whole bunch of it's just minted to a wallet. And that's not really how the actual mainnet will work. The actual mainnet will work a little bit differently, and that's kind of like between RC and mainnet. That's one of the things that has to be developed is like the atomic swap. I'm calling it like the foreign exchange house, where it just holds all of the crypto that's in the public hands, and they just interact with the smart contract on Ethereum. There's a little service that essentially listens to that and participates in the atomic swap on the other side, and life's good. And then you're inside of the network. That would be features. But let's assume that you can get like maybe there's a faucet or something, and you're chilling. The next steps would be really just starting to educate people on what the hell is going on and what it is and how people can develop applications with it. So there is like a little brief sort of tutorial in the contracting Git repository. There's like 5 notebooks in how you go down. It kind of explains to you how smart contracts work and then how you can use the client to develop them on your own instance. And then we would write an additional feature that, okay, now that after you have developed it, here's how you push it up to the RC network, and then you can start to interact with it using these APIs. So a lot of it's going to be documentation. But the features you need to understand are contracting works, and you should try to blow it up and try to make sure that the contracting is robust. We've done security testing. We found pretty much all the stuff that was very obvious and some of like not so obvious stuff. But we need to figure out like, okay, how can we break this thing? But yeah.
Having to spend dark tau on uploading a contract. Contracts will use dark tau, it like stamps, all that is in there, right? So you'll be able to test if you want to transact a large amount of data, you're going to see firsthand what that costs and things like that.
Yeah, I made a sheet. It's kind of like if you've seen the gas sheet, the Google sheet for Ethereum that just breaks down the costs. I have that for the Lamden stamps and kind of like how we figured out how much an operation costs. And we'll probably have to adjust the stamp ratio right now, but like the ratios of how much like an addition costs versus pushing something on the stack is much different because they're.
Is the stamp ratio an API call?
The stamp on what?
Is the stamp ratio an API endpoint?
Oh, it is not, but that is a good idea. And also, here's the thing.
Build our own gas site, right? There's the gas station for Ethereum. We could build a Tau gas station, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's fixed though, because so there's no
the post office, right?
Yeah, I like that. The post office.
Is it safe to say, just from an amateur point of view, which I think is very important, that RCnet is not going to go RCnet main. It's going to go RCnet. Is there going to be versions for improvement?
Oh yeah.
You foresee, for instance, like, I mean, you're not going to just send out an RCnet or release candidate, right? Which is a legit term.
Yes.
And you're going to have some initial issues. It's going to happen.
Yes.
That's just life.
Yes.
And so is it fair to say that throughout this process that you're finding these issues, even though you're able to fix them, you're going to have these patches to this process before mainnet, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. So there's those features that I talked about, like how you swap the tokens into the mainnet, right? And then there's also the concept of, so you got to fix it, and then you got to version it, and then obviously to version it, you need to have some sort of deployment mechanism to upgrade the network. And so not only are you potentially rolling out updates to RCnet, which is it's completely foreseeable and 100% going to happen, but then what's the way that you upgrade the network as a whole? Now that you have this upgrade path and you have this demand. So we've done some discussion on how we think it is going to go. But again, you need to test that in a decentralized network where you can't guarantee that people are just going to install your software. And so we can make it really easy, and we can make the default work exactly how it should, and basically be like, look, you just opt into the updates. Life is good. No worries. And then bada bing. Otherwise, you you could fork off. I don't really know what would happen in that situation, but that is another feature that is going to lead into the mainnet. And by going through that process, then you know how to upgrade the mainnet to whatever you want, and you can start just keep on releasing changes. So
it should be known. It should be known to people that are watching and people that have invested in the people that are in the community that, you know, it doesn't go RCnet mainnet. In my mind, I could be wrong, and you could correct me, but it goes RCnet with some revisions before mainnet, correct?
Yeah.
With RC version, you know, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3.
A few.
Yeah.
Sure, but that's important.
So, Stu, we got some questions here. Do we expect to be able to run an obelisk and a delegate on the same server?
No.
Your thoughts? You don't think so? Is that merely bandwidth?
I mean, like for now, I don't know. To be honest, like you might be able to. You can't do it out of the same wallet. If that, like, you can't use the same verifying key. And the concept is that you shouldn't be able to do that on the same machine. You need to have like a separate instance. So you could run 2 virtual machines on the same computer, and if they have the same resources and they're able to do what they got to do, then you can do that, right? But I don't necessarily want that because I feel like that's not ideal. You should be adding more capacity to the network, and if you're splitting your capacity between one system, like you should, the part of the feature of the masternode system is that instead of just having super rich, you know, like Hubi, who's a block producer for EOS, and all these super rich entities being those delegates, it's people who put in the resources and then maintain those resources. And so that is the key. For now, you probably could. My ideal system is no, and then the best systems, the ones that are the least latent and have the most processing power and are always confirming things and are always super fast and responsive, are the ones that are the top master nodes and the system's competitive. So if you start, like, for example, I think only 5 out of the 32 or 31 or however many block producers on EOS have the full blockchain history. So this goes into Tejas' audit layer. So if you are asked by a masternode, and masternodes know that there's a set quorum, so there's a competitive component being in that quorum. If masternodes audit you and you're like, you don't have block 360, you're supposed to have block 360, there's a cryptographic method that we've determined to be able to prove that, like, and be like, yeah, you don't have it, dude. If that is exposed to the rest of the network could be like, yeah, screw you. Like, and when I say network, I mean other nodes. So a bad node would go down, like in the masternode stack, and then a new masternode would be able to be replaced. So you would essentially be competing based on your resources. So right now, sure. But the long-term solution and the long-term goal is not necessarily that. I can't put a time frame on it, obviously. But I'm saying, like, my vision forward is to make sure that the network's processing capacity scales, just like Bitcoin miners get more and more and more, I guess, better. The nodes themselves are going to get more and more and more better, but at processing smart contracts, not just mining.
Right. And what I was gonna say about that was so we were talking about, like, what it run, well, what, you know, can you run it on a Raspberry Pi, yada yada yada. How will I know that my node isn't performing with the hardware I'm running it on?
So I mean, like, the idea is that if you do everything that you're supposed to do, you are not going to have a problem. But if you, like, say, I can disconnect this hard drive, or I don't have backups and my hard drive failed, there's nothing you can do about that. Like, that's your responsibility. And so, like, if somebody's like, I got everything, I'm on deck, I'm ready to go, I'm not in the quorum, but I've been confirming things, I'm just as good, they're going to be selected over you who has a hard drive failure. So it's more of like a maintenance process of your own system.
Yeah, I mean, so for RCnet and people wanting to install this on whatever hardware they have, how will they know if it's performing or not?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know if you don't know how to maintain your systems, right?
Well, what's the feedback from the network to tell somebody that their node just sucks? Like,
yeah. Well, let me show you. This actually is a good idea to.
Are we gonna do a presentation right now?
Yeah, real quick.
You have a pie chart.
I do. Yeah. Okay, one second. I'm gonna take a restroom break real quick, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Sure, sounds great. So Nick, I would say 4 is probably what has been communicated to this point. 4 CPUs is probably all you're going to need, and you can always scale that. So like RCnet and mainnet are completely different as far as what the hardware requirements are going to be. So RCnet, just go with the bare minimum, and this is what I'm kind of trying to get at a Stu right now, is to just figure out exactly how somebody can know that they didn't get enough, or they don't have enough. So if you're whatever service you're using allows you to scale it pretty dynamically, then you can just add a couple more if that's what you need. So it'll be pretty apparent quite quickly.
Yes. Okay. Let me share my screen. All right. Let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So I basically have up here is the master node, I think. Yeah. And then down here is the delegate. So you can start to see like got skip block notification from sender with hash. It basically, whoa. Hold on, let me see. No, this is the, all right. All right. Here's all the keys that exist. So this is what the state looks like. I'm just going to kind of demonstrate, and then you guys can see. But for testing purposes, we give these currencies like balances, so then we could send different transactions back and forth. But this is how data is laid out. So if you wanted to see the code of something, you just do like get currency code and spit it out. And like it's not super great. You have like these end lines, which formatted would look a lot better, but it's Python, right? You can see here's a hash, founder wallets. You can see this is kind of where the wallets are being seeded. So C, which one is it? CB. That one didn't get. Oh yeah, it did CB. So yeah, so it's like get. So there's a million. 1 second. I'm going to.
So this logging that's above there, that's showing in real time, kind of like the what the node is doing, what it's processing.
Yeah.
Will it fail on certain things, and that's how you kind of know you're not quick enough? Is it going to try to keep, how like what do they call that when you install a wallet and it has to like sync up to the network or something like that, and if you're not quick enough it can fall behind? Like, is it going to show you that?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to participate at all in the network. And hold on, I just wanted to.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not sharing my screen anymore, right?
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to real quick kind of show you guys what I'm talking about, because I got a whole bunch of logs here, and you can just kind of read the logs. So I was going to, okay. Oh yeah, I do send it. Okay. So basically, this is running on a network of 2-2. We call it 2-2 network. It's just pretty much 2 master nodes, 2 delegates.
Cool.
I'm gonna push a transaction real quick. I was working on this locally, so I want to make sure that good. Okay, transaction submitted.
I'm just going to say that I haven't had anyone contact me to call in, but if you want to call in, the option's open. You can talk to Stu yourself if you want. Ask him all the things about marketing that you really want to.
As long as he's willing to answer.
Yeah.
Okay, I submitted a train. Oh, yep. Okay, all right. Life is chill. Okay, one sec. Okay, so I have this script that essentially sends currency, right? So it sends 10,000 to another wallet, and I have my own wallet in here. I mean, it's not really it. And it constructs because everything's a contract transaction. Everything's a smart contract in Lamden. You're able to create serialized things, and you saw this just kind of blip. That's because there is like a sort of heartbeat block. Oops, creation process. Oopsies. That exists. So you would see on here if there's an issue. So
wow, that's pretty clean.
Yeah.
That's pretty clean.
There's a lot that does go on. And so here, hold on. We have a catch-up manager. So this is like what you're talking about when it's catching up.
Okay.
And so overlay server is when it's connecting to everyone. So there's 4 nodes in this network, and they're all basically they are distinguished by, now it's actually 3 because this server is one itself. So that's why you see these 2 twice. But it starts to look up because you're identified by your verifying key, and you sign packets with your signing key. So like if you are someone who's not in the quorum and you try to submit like, yeah, this transaction got submitted, no one's going to accept it because you're not part of the quorum. So essentially it calls everybody and it makes sure that everyone's there. Okay, cool. And then it tries to see if there's any blocks that it has missed, and then basically there weren't any because this is just an empty network. And then it starts the transaction batcher, which is, you can start to see these sub-block contenders, and this is like the conflict resolution stuff. So there's 4, consensus reached, great, it's empty. And then it kind of has this pulsing effect where it's making these empty blocks, but it doesn't really do any work. And so that's why you see this thing flashing, because this is the master node, right? So the master node accepts transactions. Let me see if I can find.
This is really cool.
Yeah, it's really
I don't know
cool.
if we just put a whole bunch of people to sleep with like the wallet tags. This is what the shit I'm into.
Actually, when people have problems with what I'm doing, at least, and I call logs, it's kind of what I'm looking at. And I say, well, you're not looking at anything, but you are.
Yeah. It has this weird error where I don't know why. This is like one of the things we have to figure out, is that I feel like for some reason someone's trying to get the endpoint. I don't know if this is like AWS or something, but someone tries to get from the main route and you just can't. So like, yeah, requested URL moo. I think someone probably, this is like I said, this is like a version that's not on like the dev branch. So I think something weird is happening where someone put a debug statement in there. But okay, so yeah, we're all caught up. Oh yeah, so this is when something actually does happen. So the hash went from 0 to something, and this log is not working appropriately, but it will basically say that something changed. And so if we go down to which one? We should be able to see where one transaction was added.
It's chatty, which is good.
Yeah. There's a lot.
It's really chatty.
Yeah. I'll just push another one, actually.
Is there a global?
Okay.
Is there some kind of global view of this? Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh,
what the consensus ended up being at the end of the day?
yeah. So that's what basically you can see. Consensus reach for previous hash is empty false because there's a transaction in it. Success, stored block with hash, this, publish new block notification. And what this basically does is it says, hey, man, I got a block, and it pushes it back to the delegate, and it's like, okay, all of those state changes, which you're kind of sitting on, commit those to the database. And then it's like, all right. So before everything, this is the conflict resolution layer, right? So if these delegates are not sending the same stuff and they're not in consensus with each other and they send it to the master node, because the master node doesn't process. There's a separation so that it's more secure. Then there's an issue there, and the master node will basically be like, you guys got to rerun this, and it will try to reconcile itself. In a perfect quorum, this is like when there's like a conflict of consensus, and then there's potentially an issue. But for the most part, everything's good. And if this guy, like, if the bottom guy accidentally did something wrong, the master node will be like, here is the actual block. And then if this is just a good actor, it will accept that block because it's from the master node, and it can see all the signatures from the delegates and be like, okay, I fucked up. So I'm just gonna change.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So what you can also do,
someone could almost easily visualize this in more of a web front end.
Yeah. See, that's like the next step, right?
Yeah.
Or people that are used to looking at it. I mean, sometimes when we're looking at issues, I mean, it looks like an ultra chatty.
So I think, yeah, okay. If we haven't pushed any transactions, it won't mint new blocks if there's nothing to process. So it's not just wasting space, but it does a heartbeat every so often. So like if I were to send some tokens to Jeff.
How often is it checking in?
It depends. There's like a limiter, right? So basically, it slows down when there is not a lot of usage happening, and then it speeds up when there is. That makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it does. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So now if I do keys, you should have some currency, Jeff. Yeah, there you go. Boom, Jeff. And so you can see it in state.
Right.
Yeah, 100. And then this has all the stamp stuff. So I'm sending it from, I sent 10,000, 10,000, and 100, right? So I should be 20,100 tokens down from 1,000,000. And I think, let's see, it's the bottom one. Yeah, is my VK. So you don't just see like 79 or whatever. You see a strange amount deducted because the stamps are deducted from it as well. And so that's interesting, right? So the stamps are all working and things like that. And if I say, okay, I'm gonna put stamps, I just put like 500,000 stamps. If I put like stamps equals 1, it's not gonna do anything. It's gonna completely blow up, but I'll push it. All right.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And
this is the part that really nobody's respecting or talking about, right? I mean, this is the back end.
Yeah. Now this stuff is super dope, and like it's from the ground up unique architecture. So it's not like you're getting a whole bunch of stuff that just no other system can have because it just isn't a system. So like whatever flavor you're looking for in a blockchain system, it could be, you could want to do Ethereum, but there are intrinsically different feelings when it comes to approaching it and constructing transactions and developing things for this that are just going to be different, and people are just going to like that.
From my end, okay, it's a little bit delayed there, but from my end, the transaction that was meant to blow up, the transaction that you knew that wasn't going to be pushed.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a delay there, but it looks like to me that didn't get pushed on the other end.
What do you mean?
So the backend code took care of it.
Where?
Let It's delayed here.
What are you talking about? So these right there. So it says the cost of the stand physics has been exceeded. He's showing you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Let's do.
Yeah. So that's what it looks like. So you can see if something's screwing up. Now this is just like it's just throwing the exception because the exception is here. We haven't wrapped this in a log, nice and tight. But you would be able to come into here and see what's up. Now, of course, now that we have more time going from working on the backend protocol to working on more the user interface, yeah, you would have your own dashboard and it'd be nice to see what the hell's going on here. And turning these from like, because this is block aggregate, these are like different services. So we have a block aggregator, a contender, sub block group. These are all processes, and like they each have different things going on with them. And so to be able to kind of break that out is super important, I think.
Well, that's the what do they call that? Forget it. Never mind. It's almost 1 o'clock on the East
Coast. Yeah,
time.
Yeah. We can cut it off because it's getting late here too.
Oh, but
it was nice. You got to flex a little bit there. That was cool.
So, I mean, I guess for me, being on the outside, I feel like these podcasts are important. Like, how do you view them? I mean,
they're good.
I mean, I know they're not getting a lot of viewership.
Yeah.
Right now, but I mean, how important do you put them?
They're pretty good. I mean, like I think like our marketing guy would say they're more important than I want to attribute to them. I think like once I get going, I'm fine. It's usually like, man, it's like a Sunday. I don't really want to do this. I just want to watch like something on YouTube. You know, I just want to fuck around. But I'm excited about it. So like when I get into the groove, I'm like, oh yeah, I could talk about this stuff for hours. And then, you know, you end up doing it. I think it's important, and I think we said this initially, it's important because it documents the process, but then it's also just fodder material for whatever. So like you're talking about JRE, his clips are broken up all over the place and he uses that.
Right.
Every podcast does that, right? Like the highlights. And you just put that wherever you want to put it. And I think the message that we are saying is different than what's being kind of set out there. And so just to broadcast, that's important. And we're looking at like, how do we market this? It's an active conversation that's going on.
Right.
This is one of the ways you do it. You just get a ton of content, you chop it up, you inject those, you broadcast them across different Telegram groups, different Twitters, you get the community, right? You comment them. There's a ton of different ways that you can do sort of like this grassroots growth hacking or whatever. And then there's the more active stuff, which is piping people onto the website, providing an interactive experience, an onboarding sort of call to action that you can then tune, because you also can have a marketing website that has certain call to action. So like, okay, how many people say sign up for the newsletter or deploy a test contract or get test Lamden tokens, right? So there's a million different things, and so I'm pretty stoked. Should be good. I think even for RCNet, you know, you just go on there and you're like, get 100 free test tokens. Click, and then you capture their email, and then you just remind them to keep on coming back. You push updates to them. You build a list. We have a list of like 10,000 people that we're starting to reutilize that we gathered a long time ago. So, you know, it's all good stuff, and I think like yeah, I think it's starting to materialize. I think people, you can't appease people, because even if you do, someone else is going to not be okay with it. You can just demonstrate the process, and then people buy into the process, or they don't. There's nothing really.
We have a pretty good community of educating people, so we're lucky in respect. So tomorrow's gonna be an exciting day, and you know, I'm looking forward to it. Guys, we're gonna call it a night, and I appreciate Stu. Guys, I'm sure everyone here knows this, but I'll go through it anyway. Follow us on Twitter at @LandmanTao. and Telegram at Lamden Chat. Also follow if you don't want the daily chatter, you just want to hear the news at Lamden News. Instagram's at Lamden.io. Reddit is r Lamden, and you can always check out our blog at blog.lamden.com. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rich, for joining us and letting me stay at your beautiful house. And thank you, Stu. Outside. Yeah, I'm gonna go inside where it's warm.
Yeah.
Right, take it easy, Stu.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.